I find it really kind of funny that all these people who don't trust American intelligence, don't trust Israeli intelligence, all the Western governments and the deep state and the CIA, that's all suspect. But Candace Owens' intelligence, right on, girl. Welcome back to
Amidst house.
All right, Michael, we're going to keep our episode short and sweet today. The holiday season is upon us, and you told me yesterday it's your favorite night of the year tonight. Is that correct?
Pre-Thanksgiving night, yeah. Arab Thanksgiving, I love it.
Yeah, I think so too. I feel it too. It's amazing.
It's a universal night off. I don't know. I guess unless you work in a restaurant probably or a bar, I feel like it's like everyone is just done.
You know also what it is? It's, I think, as Orthodox Jews, like we are constantly at odds with the schedule when it comes to our holidays, vacations. And you're always like, all right, I got to figure out how to do this so that I can escape from the broader, world I live in and figure out how to get back to it. But this is the first time you're like in sync with everybody. And like you said, it's universal and it's like a yontif holiday for the masses of America, and you really feel included and a part of it. It's nice. It's nice to all celebrate together because it's actually, there's no religious component specifically, so it's a true American holiday, and it's a nice time. I think that's what
for now.
Exactly. So while we still can, I don't want to be too deranged.
Oh my God, no, you're right. It's totally coming. They're gonna take Thanksgiving back.
No, but that whole feeling, even with Christmas, like we just don't celebrate Christmas, so we can feel the season around us, but we get to do Thanksgiving. And it's a piece of cake for the Orthodox Jews because we host meals like this every freaking weekend.
Exactly. It's actually like less stressful than Shabbos in a lot of ways.
We had this idea to do a sketch where it was a Jewish consulting non-Jews, Gentiles for their Thanksgiving feast. So how many people are you? 4? Oh, my God. 4 people. Okay. And how many kids? 1? Oh, mazel tov, baby. No, 14. Oh, okay. So it's just like, the whole thing is just a big joke. And it's
That's
like
really
you're telling she consults the non-Jewish woman. Now listen, don't let your daughter-in-law make the main. Okay? You don't want her to have that kind of power. So anyway, yes,
That's
it is
really
the
good.
season. It's the time. We can say what we're thankful for at the end. But you know what I'm thankful for more recently is Elon Musk's latest update on Twitter. You know what's so interesting? We did this episode many months ago with James Lindsay, and he spoke to us about foreign bots infiltrating Twitter, infiltrating MAGA, and all this Groyper movement is actually some foreign infiltration. And it all sounds conspiratorial and lofty and crazy, and you kind of write it off. It also seems like a convenient excuse not to actually have to deal with the arguments and the changing in the culture. But he made a case. We listened to it. A lot of people wrote him off. And now, with this one little update on Twitter, you're seeing an actual foreign intervention, an exposed of what's going on.
So for someone who's not paying attention, what was the update?
Basically, on Twitter, there's an update that allows you now to click on any profile, find out where they joined, and find out where the account is based. And come to find out, we're seeing account after account that's been hostile to Israel, hostile to Jews, on the left and the right, whether it's, from the Middle East or accounts that are called like Red Pill Media that are like posing as MAGA accounts with 200,000 followers are based in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Israel Exposed. They're acting as if we're these Americans that need to turn on Israel. So it gets you thinking, we were all wondering, how is this happening? How is there this just groundswell of anti-Israel sentiment, anti-Semitism on Twitter? What's going on here? Oh my God. And it makes you think maybe it's not that public opinion turned anti-Israel, but that pre-existing anti-Israel forces turned public opinion through foreign meddling. And it's all kind of coming to light now, and it's quite delicious.
So what happens to an account that maybe has a lot of followers and influence, and now it's discovered it's from Bangladesh? Do people discount it entirely now?
What I think it does is, it has like this weird parallel to false claims of this kind of stuff. You think about Russia meddling in the elections, and people make up all sorts of baseless claims because they don't want to actually contend with what's going on. But now you see this, and what it introduces into the conversation is an element of there may be another side to this. There may be another reason for the right-wing infighting. I started seeing Matt Walsh, who's been like, stop infighting on the right, guys. Stop this nonsense. Now coming to question why there's infighting in the first place. And it's not the Israel first pro-Israel crowd that's doing it. It's the Israel first hater crowd that's obsessed with Israel that's doing it. He keeps asking the real important question, which I think a lot of us on the other side have been trying to make this case to people like Matt Walsh, who I think are good faith actors, but maybe being misled or misunderstanding the moment. We're saying the people obsessed with hating Israel and making every issue about Israel are the ones causing the disunity, are the ones causing the infighting. It's not us who are pro-Israel that are departing from standard conservative positions or, dividing a movement. It's those nefarious actors. And this is, I think, showing people like him, I think maybe we all have been fooled and misled by a massive propaganda effort. And I think it discredits that.
I'm confused. Matt Walsh was saying the pro-Israel crowd were the ones fracturing the right? How would that have been?
No, but he wasn't accusing the pro-Israel side of doing that, but the forces at play in the conversation of unite the right versus not uniting with groypers and anti-Semites. Basically, a guy like Matt Walsh is saying, we don't need division on this side right now. We have bigger fish to fry on the left. Whoever's doing it, whether you're Mark Levin, Megyn Kelly, whatever, stop stop criticizing me. I don't want to. And I think he sympathizes with the idea that, like, I just don't want to talk about Israel. Like, I'm apathetic to it. I want to focus on America. That's fair. I totally get that. And I think Americans should prioritize America. It's your country. That's what you should do. But I think his diagnosis as to where this division and tension was coming from was he was seeing the Zionist side probably as maybe naming and shaming people too much and causing disunity and division. But now he's starting to realize, wait a minute, there's this massive effort to cause this disunity from foreign bots.
So we're still doing the naming and shaming. That is happening, but that's not the reason things have gotten so crazy.
I think I think it's like saying, he was going after the doctors for finding so much cancer. Hey, stop diagnosing the cancer. We need to fight other things. This cancer is not that dangerous. The left is a bigger cancer. And the doctors are saying, no. There's other people infusing cancer into the dialogue.
Right. So I have two questions. Who is it, the Bangladeshi government, or is it like Iran working out of Bangladesh? Like who is the culprit there? Has anyone figured that out?
It's a good question as to what extent this is like privately funded, government funded, but again, it's false prophets, false accounts, people posing.
It's like farms.
I don't know the technical
countries.
Operations of it, but at least you know that red pill media, MAGA first, with a blonde lady saying, we need to turn on Israel. And you're like, that doesn't make sense. It's because it doesn't make sense. It's from Pakistan. It's from Bangladesh. I will say, to be fair, I've seen accounts that are pro-Israel, like based in India. So it's possible there's fight fire with fire, but at the same time, there's a lot of, I think, someone I was speaking to recently was saying, India is a natural ally to Israel. We face a lot of similar enemies with radical jihadism. India and Pakistan have a lot of beef. Israel fights a lot of similar enemies to India. So there's a lot of love between Modi and Bibi have an allyship. So that might be more organic. But the point is, a lot of the stuff, if it feels weird, it's because it is. If it feels not organic and manufactured, it's because it is. And a lot of people are using this new environment and the swell of public opinion turning on Israel. And I'm like, hey, you're being manipulated. And I think that's coming to roost.
I wish the truth coming to surface would make a difference.
Don't get cynical on me, Mikey.
I don't think it's cynicism. I think it's understanding what's really happening here, where this isn't a public debate about the truth. It's a feeling and a sentiment that already existed that's being exploited by people like Candace Owens, people like Tucker Carlson, and also foreign governments and foreign actors. And it doesn't matter where it comes from. It doesn't really matter why it's happening. The feeling's there. It's been exploited. And if the Bangladeshis wouldn't have done it, maybe someone else will do it anyway. So I don't think it's going to, if you feel a certain way about America and your place in it, and you're able to be if you feel that way, and someone's offering you a reason, hey, here's why you feel that way. It's actually not your fault, and there's actually nothing you could do about it. So don't worry, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do a thing. It's Israel and it's the Jews and it's this and that. That's the problem. The problem is that people feel that way.
Yes.
It's not because of Iran. It's not like Iran, and it's not like if we expose that, anything's going to change. That's how I feel about it.
Except that regardless of how people feel or what it exposed about the current like diagnosis of the culture with regard to Israel, Jews, the West, the demoralization, like that's all there. But the truth ultimately matters. If you value what's true as a principle in and of itself, if we can't lose sight of that, that's like saying, hey, the patient is still sick. I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah. But now we actually know the reason why. And it doesn't change the state of the patient in the long term.
It does. It does in the long term.
What I mean is, if we're trying,
I don't think it does, though.
You can be cynical about it. You're like, hey, we've been treating this cancer patient with all the wrong things. Now we know the right things, but whatever. He still has cancer. What's the difference? So I'm like, no. Now we kind of shed light on why this person is perpetually sick, and I say person as an analogy for the culture. And now we kind of have
I'm not saying what's the difference. I'm saying I don't think it's cynical to go. It's not cynicism. It's almost practically. So what do we do right now to make this guy who has cancer feel better? It doesn't matter if we know what's causing it. It will matter. It'll matter in 10 to 15 years that Iran's responsible for this or whoever or Pakistan. But right now, what do we do right now? I'm not sure if that changes anything.
You're saying the truth of a matter doesn't like change people's minds overnight and ultimately solve the problem.
Absolutely not.
Right. Yeah. That I think is true, but I don't know. There's something to me encouraging in terms of the cognitive dissonance or just making sense of a situation to say, hey, yes, this thing happened. These bot accounts are there. The foreign infiltration is there and meddling into our culture and society and our civil discourse is there. It caused all this damage. We didn't know why, but at least to make sense of some of the confusion, it's a step in the right direction to find your way out of the muck and to say, hey, like now there's this other data point here, and anyone who's like staked their credibility on analyzing the public opinion turning on Israel on this behavior and activity is going to be exposed.
So speaking of credibility and making sense.
Great transition, Michael. Here we go. Candace Owens goes further down the crazy pills rabbit hole. And let's just tell people what's going on. If you're not following, she posted a tweet. We can put the tweet up here. There it is. Basically claiming that the French government or the French legionnaires, and also throw in an Israeli spy, why don't you? Because you got to attach a little Israeli to the flavor, are trying to kill her. They're trying to assassinate her. That's the claim she's now making. She, of course, has all the evidence. She hasn't shown it. She has it. And she has claimed the White House confirmed this. She has claimed the White House confirmed this. And there's a great video everyone should check out, kind of breaking down her whole MO of how she does this. We can link it. I can find it for you. But, you know, I just find it really interesting that a lot of the people who are throwing down for her on her side, and Dave Smith posted, I have to say, I don't know if this is true or not, but if it's true and they try to take out Candace Owens, just know that will turn all of us into Candace Owens. And I responded to him, and if it isn't true, Dave, what will that say? It might say that those of us like with rational, decent minds who assess the evidence have been here all along and calling this out. And we've known this for much longer than you. And the fact that you've staked your credibility on this is quite bizarre. I would just say overall, I find it really kind of funny that all these people who don't trust American intelligence, don't trust Israeli intelligence, all the Western governments and the deep state and the CIA, all their reports and work over the years and years and years, finding out and telling us and communicating to us what's going on in the world, that's all suspect. But Candace Owens' intelligence, right on, girl. It's like, guys, this is like, you're not serious people. These are not serious people. This is a fundamentally unserious place. And everyone's like throwing it down like it's this fun game. And I'm like, I just can't believe people would want to risk their own credibility on this kind of thing because, I don't know. Hey, we could be proven wrong, but it seems very obviously crazy to me, knowing her like pattern of lying and misrepresenting to say, hey, and for him to like couch it and say, well, if this is true, if it turns out to be true, then what are you really saying then? If it's not true, then what are you going to do? Because if it's not true, it's a pretty big deal.
I wonder if this is a a transitional moment for her
Yeah.
into some sort of next phase where up until now it's been about them. There's information out there. There are dark forces and I'm going to tell you the truth about it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's turning into me. Now I'm under attack. I'm going to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if this is a transition into, I'm reading a fascinating book now called Prophets of Deceit, which I want to talk more about.
Say it again. Say the title.
Prophets of Deceit. In 1940, these researchers wrote a book in 1940 about what it would look like if an American tried to do what the fascists in Europe were doing. Like, what would the American version of that be? And he goes through what are the common traits of fascists as they move along their as they progress from whatever they start out into like a fascist dictator. And they go through step by step sort of the methodology they use. And I'm reading it, and it's exactly what Candace Owens does.
Keep going.
He calls them agitators. So I don't want to get into too many details now because I really want to flesh it out like on the podcast with you. But I'm reading it and I'm like, this is Candace Owens. Where it all eventually leads is there are these forces out there. And I wish I didn't have to do this, but I'm the only person who can stop it. I don't want to, but I have to.
It's called agitation propaganda, right? Agprop or something. But either way, agitators.
He calls them agitators. Yeah, okay. I don't think he uses that yet.
So just give me a brief summary. We'll unpack it in a different episode. But the brief summary of the MO, as you were saying,
it's basically like I don't even want to go through the brief summary. I just want to say that it goes from identifying a sentiment in a public sentiment. Right. And then bringing that sentiment back to whoever you want to blame for it. Right. So so we'll get more into it, but basically where it leads is I don't want to be your leader, but I have to, and you're gonna have to trust me. I'm the only one who can do it. I wonder if this is so. I'm thinking, like, does Candace want to like lead? Is she gonna like run for Congress or something? Like, where does this all go if she's following the methodology? And then I hear about this, and maybe this is some sort of transition into like. Now it's coming back to me, and I'm going to bring
I'm the martyr. I'm the martyr.
Exactly. I'm the martyr, and I'm your savior. And who knows? Maybe we'll look back on this in 3 or 4 years and be like, oh, like Senator Owens.
I actually think it's going the other way.
Okay.
I'll state it right here that in 3 to 4 years you're going to be like, oh, remember that story with that, number one podcaster who built up a whole audience.
Yeah.
And everybody eventually realized, in the same way there's like cult of personality figures who eventually vanish into oblivion in terms of their influence and impact. They vanish into obscurity. I'm sorry, that's the word. And I've always said she's going to end up like alone on a rock in the middle of the Red Sea with the empire collapsed because that's always been my prediction. And here we are, like a year later, like, the French government's trying to kill me, and it's the French lieutenant, and it's an Israeli spy. And overall, people are going to look back and say, eventually, she made such outlandish claims. And I think somebody made a case. I saw this thread that what's really happening behind the scenes is that there's a massive lawsuit against her from the French government, from Macron. And it's according to them, it's pretty devastating in terms of the things she claimed, the defamation, all that kind of stuff. She was provided plenty of evidence that Brigitte Macron is a woman. Pictures of her genitals and everything. No, she didn't do that. But basically all the different stuff. And Candace just ignored all that and kept going down this other path. And so eventually they catch up with you, and then you throw the Hail Mary pass. They're trying to kill me. And you throw up this Hail Mary pass for everyone to galvanize around you if it's this mega emergency. And everyone's like, pray for Candace, pray for Candace. Now, some people are saying pray for her because they think she's crazy. And a lot of people are saying pray for her because they're fans. But I just think this is... We're right at the peak before
Pharaoh was alone on the rock in the middle of the Red Sea, he was Pharaoh. I don't think she's reached her peak yet. I think a few years ago you would have said if she was saying the things she has already said, she would never reach number one. That would have been her downfall. You can't say that type of thing and remain around and even grow your audience. But she has, and it's growing. I don't think she's. I don't trust
the
You've been
numbers.
saying this forever, though.
No,
and she keeps growing.
I don't trust the numbers. I don't trust the status metrics on number one, considering all the foreign influence, considering all the elevation of her content to all these various accounts that are pushing it. I really don't believe it. If you look at the comment section on the videos, it's absolutely insane and full of insane people. I think there's a lot. I really think the community has actually, dare I say, shrunken and focused down into people who are really less and less reasonable, more and more conspiratorial. I think she's losing more people than she's gaining. I think there's a perception. The perception is number one, but in fact, more people are saying, okay, I don't know.
So this might be a good way to wrap it up, because it goes back to the fake accounts.
Right.
What's more important, the truth or the perception?
The truth. What do you mean?
I think ultimately the truth, but I think for a very long, perception gets you a very long way. I don't think we're at the end of the perception era.
Yeah. Right. Where we are, I think it's a house of cards. I really do. And then eventually everyone's going to be like, sheesh. I mean, there's been cult of personalities before who built up massive cult followings. And then eventually you look back, you're like, wow, yeah, I think there's precedent for that. And I think she's displaying all the signs of like the cult leader following. That's a house of cards built on nothing. And eventually those things don't sustain. Yeah, the long term is always like the answer, like what happens in the long term. But I think ultimately, I don't think this is based on integrity or evidence or truth. I think it's based on lies, half-truths, deception, manipulation. That's an unsustainable recipe for an audience, for an empire, for authenticity. It doesn't work.
But real world decisions are being made in response to the perception, like meaning there's a perception that Nick Fuentes has this very, very large following that needs to be addressed, that needs to be brought into the right-wing coalition if they want to win an election.
You're right.
So even if it's not true, which is interesting, and I hope that's the case, JD Vance is still figuring that into his equations, which it's a pretty interesting place to be in.
We should wrap up on this, because this is we discussed this as an important thing that's going on right now, which is perception. To say what you want is the truth matters in some sort of objective standard. It does. Right. Ethical, moral, the truth matters, but perception also has consequences, obviously. Right. What's interesting now, shifting into the Fuentes conversation, is it's really frustrating and really disheartening to have to contend with the ideas of Nick Fuentes simply because the ideas are popular, and yet we can have no moral standard or judgment. Like, you watch Tucker Carlson in the aftermath of that interview with Fuentes say things like, I push back on the anti-Semitism, of course. Like I said, period, it's wrong, of course. But doesn't mean I disagree with him about everything. He has a point about everything. Mm-hmm. And again, it's this idea that just because he has a reasonable point about one other subject or another subject here, or is a Catholic, or has an idea about family that you might agree with, that doesn't allow then to accompany the totality of him into the room, into the dialogue, to be accepted when he holds views that are antithetical to those things. I just think that Overton window's been pushed, and you have to have some sort of standards where, Hitler was a good painter. Okay, that's not that relevant, because the bad ideas are much more significant and dangerous than the good ideas that plenty of people have. There are plenty of better allies and better people that don't also possess within them much more damaging ideas that they're bringing to the table. And the fact that he's being mainstream, and you're watching Piers Morgan like drool, like, oh, I really want to have him. I really want to talk to him, but I also have to make sure people don't think I'm bad in doing it. I don't want to, but I know I have to. So first let's have Jake Shields. First let's talk about Nick Fuentes, because ultimately what drives all of these people is attention. And if nobody cared about Nick Fuentes, Piers Morgan wouldn't care about Nick Fuentes. But ultimately, that's what it is. Like, as the ends, like, if it's making an impact and it's popular, we have to have it. We have to talk about it. And that's the moral compass, not the damage. So anyway, I just find that the lapse of moral standards here is really disappointing. That we're able to, that people are trying to pressure people to accept people with some of the worst, most disgusting ideas because it's popular.
You can imagine Piers Morgan, like, reaching out to Nick Fuentes, having him on the show, welcoming him, and then the second the camera turns on, he goes, "You're a disgusting person, aren't you?" He does all of it just to say to his face on his own show, "You're terrible. I wish you weren't here. How could you be here?"
Yeah. Exactly.
So twisted.
Yeah. I always can see when a kernel of funny is cooking in your head. You're like, I think it's disgusting. He did that with, like, he's having the circus show. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I find that pressure to now have to contend with these ideas. Like, in 2025, we've been here before. The people in the 30s and the 20s, the evil that was perpetrated in the 20th century, the crimes of that, one could argue they were. it was awful, and one could argue they were experimenting with all these new lofty ideas that had disastrous consequences, like communism, the agrarian society, the Khmer Rouge, the Nazis. They were trying to perfect society, and look what happened. Disastrous consequences. Yeah. But in 2025, with this in living memory, there's no excuse to try to, dabble in these sort of experiments in illiberalism. Here we are.
It's not living memory anymore. The generation is almost dead. No, that's a big part of it. I'm serious.
100%. 100%. My point is, like, we have the most, like, preserved disastrous consequences in recorded history of what took place when these ideas were explored. And it's like Douglas Murray saying, like, we know this dark path it goes down. And the fact that in 2025, we're still being pressured to play with it, consider it, debate it is kind of insane to me. I thought we all kind of understood in civil society that we can have disagreements on policy and politics, left, right, and center. But there are certain things we all agree are wrong, like blatant racism, anti-Semitism, judging people based on the color of their skin, persecuting people based on the color of their skin, judging people totally collectively. I thought we all kind of understood that for so long, and that whole framework is collapsing because some troll is getting popular on Rumble.
At least we think. So let's wrap up on what you're thankful for.
Ben Shapiro. And, well,
it's a good one. That's a pretty good one.
I'm thankful for those holding the line. This is maybe sound cheesy and cringe, but like we saw the left collapse by indulging the worst ideas of its fringes, by Kamala Harris, she, hers, trying to like play that game and basically capitulate to like an appeal to the worst ideas, even though they knew they didn't believe it. You have Malcolm Gladwell selling. I couldn't say what I really thought about men and women's sports and all that because I would have been chewed out. So they went like this. They huddled. They turtled. And what you're seeing on the right is something very different. I think you're saying in the immediate sort of indications that things are going way too far or things are going beyond the pale. There's a massive infighting, a vocal civil war about where the conservative movement stands, and there's mistakes being made. Guilt by association may be too much out of hand, naming and shaming, calling everyone a Nazi when you shouldn't. You have to be, there's a lack of discernment, but at least the tension is there so that you see who stands on principle when the worst ideas surface. And that's encouraging to me to know that you have Seth Dillon, you have Ben Shapiro, you have people saying, we're not going to become the caricatures the left called us for so long. We're not going to do that. And that's what I'm thankful for in that regard on the macro. Otherwise, I'm thankful for my co-host, Michael Weber, for sticking it out in the grind of the podcastistan space as we become the biggest podcast. We have to say someone's trying to kill us, Michael. That's the only way. You had a dream that
Someone is trying to kill us.
Nick Fuentes was trying to come after us. You had said you had a dream.
Oh my God. I woke up literally screaming. Like,
really?
Yeah, it's been years since I had a nightmare like that. I had a dream Nick Fuentes. This was a dream that you and I had interviewed Nick Fuentes a very long time ago. And there was something in the background of his shot that he realized was like terrible. And he's like, oh my God, it's like on YouTube. I got to go get those guys. And he tried to like kill us to like take that down. And our response was like, Nick, this is actually great for our channel. So we're not going to play ball with you.
But you know what? If we use the Candace Owens logic and approach, if you had a dream about it, that means it's true. It happened. Yeah. I feel it's true.
Well, I think he is. If
it's a fact. Your dream is verifiable evidence of something that took place in your mind
in my heart.
It really happened. Yeah. You really had a dream, and now the White House has verified it. So more on that story later, you guys.
More on that story later. For my newsletter, everyone should check it out.
Yes.
Link in my Instagram bio.
Thankful for your own newsletter.
For my own newsletter.
Anything else?
That's all I got. All right. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, everyone.
Have a great Thanksgiving, Yontif. You keeping first days? What are you doing second days? There isn't. Very nice. Enjoy. Yeah. We should all be thankful. Gratitude. Look.
And thanks to all of you for listening and watching.
I will end on a positive note. Alex Edelman, he was on a panel. I saw a clip of him talking about how, the plight of Jews and where we are now, never worse than it's ever been for Jews. And he's like, and I don't agree with him on this, but I appreciate the sentiment of like, Jewish writers, Jewish art. The fact that people are going crazy about it also says that we're really in a position where we have impact and we're at a place in society where we're contributing in such a significant way that we should be proud of those things in art, in culture, in science, in politics, whatever it may be. You know, we can look at it and be distraught and feel like we're at the worst, place that we've been in decades. But the truth is, there's a lot to be proud of and a lot of accomplishment and a lot of prominence that we shouldn't shy away from. And, I think he's saying it to sort of downplay the paranoia and the fear. So I'm not necessarily sure I agree with the conclusion as to what that means, but I can appreciate just trying to stay positive and be grateful and be proud to be a Yid. Geschmack to be a Yid. Michael, hey, I have a freiliche Thanksgiving.
A guten Thanksgiving.
A guten Thanksgiving. Thanks for watching, everybody. Follow on Patreon. Subscribe on Patreon. Become a patron. Help support the channel. And we appreciate you all so much. Happy Thanksgiving.